to go.
Cool!
Hey everyone, it's Nux, once again back with another video. And in today's video, I want to talk about a popular little idea that's been floating around for a while, and really outline my general thoughts on it. So, with the Super Mario Bros. Movie getting closer and closer, and its release being pretty imminent, it obviously has the idea of Nintendo movies on a lot of people's minds. And some people are even already thinking about the future of Nintendo doing more movies based on all their iconic series. And I don't blame them. Pretty exciting to see Nintendo branching out like this, considering how sheltered they've been about tackling media outside their video games for the longest time. And with this movie especially looking as good as it does right now, and it potentially being a big success, it has a lot of people wondering what that future could look like exactly, as it could open up all sorts of different possibilities. One of the biggest and most discussed of these, of course, being a Nintendo cinematic universe. Now, despite this being a popular idea out there, there's actually a lot of mixed reception around the idea of a Nintendo cinematic universe. On one side, there are obviously people, like me, who would eat it up and love it, because we've been waiting for some kind of proper Nintendo movies for a really freaking long time. And the possibility of us not only getting more Nintendo movies, but a whole slew of them that interconnect into crossovers like Smash Bros. Movies, where they come together and fight threats like Master Hand and Taboo on the big screen, could be really exciting. But on the other side, of course, are those that are a little more reluctant to see one. And at first, not gonna lie, I personally see it as a little ridiculous to be super against the idea of us getting something that cool, but I can understand the arguments against there being one. Obviously, the big inspiration for this Nintendo Cinematic Universe concept is the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is the biggest and most successful one due to how well it told the overall stories of that universe. But at this point in time right now, the MCU is not exactly at the best standing with people, due to how its recent films have more so leaned towards either being very mediocre or really bad. And aside from the MCU, there are other cinematic universes, but they did not reach the same level of success that the MCU did, and crashed pretty hard trying to achieve that success. So it's easy to see how a Nintendo Cinematic Universe could either crash and burn hard out the jump, or fall to a point where people don't like it before we can get anything truly exciting. And it'd especially suck if that were the case, because it could potentially take down the possibility of all Nintendo movies in the future. But despite those risks and worries, if an NCU, as I'll call it, is done right, I truly do think that it could be an extremely fun and exciting way to get more Nintendo movie projects. And I actually think it's realistically possible to do one as well, which is what we are going to be talking about today. What is the realistic possibility of seeing a Nintendo Cinematic Universe, and how could it possibly work out? Now, in order to get an idea of how to possibly do a Nintendo Cinematic Universe, let's look at the recent lineup of Nintendo movie projects that we have. Obviously, the two major ones that people talk about are the Detective Pikachu movie and this upcoming Mario movie by Illumination. And despite both of these movies being good on their own possibly, it does put us on a rough footing, as Detective Pikachu is a very different type of movie from the Mario one. Detective Pikachu is a live-action adaptation of a Pokemon spin-off game that really feels different from anything like the more popular mainline Pokemon games, as while its reception is pretty positive, and I do think it was an important step in video game movies being better overall, it isn't exactly what I would call the pinnacle of what video game movies could be, or even Nintendo movies, as I think this movie wouldn't work as a template for other Nintendo movies and shouldn't be the base start or even a part of a theoretical Nintendo cinematic universe. Now with the Mario movie on the other hand, I feel like it works a lot better because it looks a lot more faithful to the games in visuals and style. And just overall, it is capturing the magic of a Nintendo property series in a more appealing way in my opinion. So I think that movie structure works a little better for outlining how Nintendo movies in this potential franchise could work, at least based on everything we have seen so far. So that's it then, right? Just take the format of the Mario movie, translate it into movies covering the other Nintendo series, call it a day, and that guarantees success, right? Well, not exactly. Because when it comes to doing a Nintendo cinematic universe, you have to consider how different Nintendo's properties are from each other. And while the Mario movie is looking great thus far, there are flaws to it that definitely reek of those classic Hollywood fumblings, such as the celebrity cast that replaces more qualified and longtime voice actors, the hit or miss energetic humor, and etc. Stuff like that wouldn't work as great for some of the other Nintendo series, and each individual movie might need more unique accommodations for it. So I can see even more why folks are hesitant on an NCU, especially those who are passionate about specific series and don't want to see them generalized into annoying Hollywood tropes. This is also due to how it is Illumination handling this Mario movie. And while they're doing an okay job right now, it's not really clear if they'd work as well handling other Nintendo series. Now, some of the other Nintendo IPs I could see working well in the format Illumination has crafted for this Mario movie. Obviously, I could see them handling Mario movie sequels, spin-offs centered on other characters like Luigi's Mansion or Donkey Kong Country, and series with similar vibes to the Mario one. But not only is it unrealistic to see Illumination handling every single movie to fill a Nintendo Cinematic Universe up, but there are very much Nintendo series that wouldn't work as well in the format of the Mario movie as much. An immediate example is series like Zelda and Metroid, which are known to be a bit darker sometimes and get into more deep themes. Obviously, a series like Zelda still has its quirky side, and can easily still work under those guidelines, but it just would be more ideal to consider other Western studios, or even more ideally, Japanese studios that would cater to the tone and energy of those series better. Let's look at a series like Kirby, for example. Now, Kirby is a series that is kinda similar to Mario, in that it's an action-adventure platformer series with a bright art style and lots of quirky characters. So it could work like the Illumination Mario movie, but it's a lot easier to screw up Kirby as a movie than Mario than you would think. And let me explain why. I talked about this a lot on Twitter, but basically, Kirby fans agree that Kirby has a bit more of a unique energy to it compared to others, as Kirby is more relaxed than Mario in a general sense, but with a tendency to shift into areas that aren't as simple as Mario. Kirby is a series with a lot of genuine good character development, games with cool concepts to turn into movies, and etc. And I feel like unlike with Mario, Kirby has more potential to miss the mark due to how less people understand it. I ranted about this in that big 𝗕𝗲𝗃 video, and the amount of people who misunderstand modern Kirby alone is high. So it's easy to see Hollywood looking at Kirby on a surface level and making a movie that just uses the series as such. Similar to Kirby Right Back at Ya, but to a more disrespectful degree. Like, I have a lot of love and fondness for Kirby Right Back at Ya, but the truth is that it is very different from how the Kirby series is today. It was made before the series 100% found its new footing, so I would like a movie that can adjust to that new footing much better. I want a studio that is really willing to work with guys like Kumazaki or the HAL dev team as a whole to really get a modern day media portrayal of Kirby right. I don't just want a movie that just makes Kirby out as a baby pink boy who eats stuff, fights the funny penguin man, and beats up monsters. I want it to dive into the other cool and iconic areas of the Kirby series, which is what applies to series such as Zelda and Metroid, as I don't think Illumination would be able to dive into the darker elements of those series due to being known as a studio that makes lighthearted family films. And while you could maybe scale down series like Zelda a bit to make it a lighter but faithful movie, many fans agree that it'd just be better to let other studios handle certain series. So that is a big challenge for the MCU concept, balancing these films between multiple studios, keeping an overall consistent energy throughout the films, and keeping a consistent story between them. It's definitely possible, but a pretty challenging endeavor. Universal, the parents of Illumination, do have other studios, like DreamWorks, and Nintendo is even rumored to be starting their own studio and could even work with others such as the studios who work on the Pokemon anime stuff. But it's still a lot to balance. So if this MCU stuff were to work, it would need to start on a smaller scale and slowly build into something bigger only when it's ready. Which is something I feel like a lot of the franchises that have tried to follow in the MCU shoes don't understand. The MCU wasn't always this grand set of films with crazy big events happening in every other movie. It started off light with solo films for a small set of heroes, and then even the first Avengers movie had stakes that were a bit smaller compared to what they'd become in the grander Infinity Saga. So if an MCU is going to work, it especially needs to understand that, as Nintendo's series are even more wacky and disconnected. Some say it's not even possible to connect these series into something that blends together at all, but I mean, gee, it's almost like there's a certain Nintendo crossover series that's one of the biggest Nintendo sellers. Smash Bros itself would be a bit hard to translate into a full set of movies with story, but it is not impossible in my eyes, as Smash as a series already has so much uniqueness by itself that even with only a few Nintendo series to make up its content, it can work. I just stress that, no, they can't come out the gate with a movie for every individual character featured in Smash Ultimate and make them lead up to a crossover as big as that game, as that's just insanely unrealistic. For example, one thing I often see when looking at Nintendo Cinematic Universe outlines is the inclusion of third parties, and them having roles in movies as part of an MCU, like Sonic weirdly always being counted, even if he isn't owned by Nintendo. Yeah, no. Let me just say now, that is not happening, as negotiating rights for these characters in a platform fighting game and doing it for multiple movies throughout a franchise is a whole different ballpark. Strangely though, I don't even think that is 100% impossible. Because let's look at Sonic for example. Of all the third-party Smash characters, I could see Sega folding and letting Sonic be a part of a Nintendo Cinematic Universe. Contrary to popular belief, Sega are massive Nintendo simps now, and are buddies with them. The idea that they are still diehard rivals is just energy from 90s fanboys that won't let that garbage die. But Sonic would truly be that only one almost, as I just do not see any of the others realistically being a part of an MCU without crazy miracle stuff. But even looking at just the first-party Nintendo series, only some of them truly have the clout and story potential to make up an NCU that can lead to a satisfying potential Smash movie, which is why that is where they have to aim expectations if it's happening at all. A Nintendo Cinematic Universe that gives movies to all of these Nintendo series is a pipe dream, and at bare minimum, if any type of connected Nintendo movies happen, it'll just be this Mario movie from Illumination and its potential sequels or spin-offs. But I don't rule out that an NCU could happen someday, and that it could actually be really good. It just needs to be realistic about what they can do at a time, and start things off on a small scale. Maybe make a handful of Nintendo movies first, and see if those could lead up to a cool first Smash movie with a more tame energy. And if that works out, build on it in sequels, and get crazier from there. But with that ends my thoughts on the subject for today. Maybe in another video, after we see if this first Illumination Mario movie is even good, I'll tackle all the potential Nintendo video game series that could get movies, and how they could work as standalone films and connect into a greater NCU franchise. But for now, I'm done for today. If you've made it to this point of the video, thank you for watching all the way until the end. So, what are your thoughts on a potential Nintendo Cinematic Universe? Is it something you really want to see, or do you personally think it's a foolish idea? And what kinds of Nintendo movies do you want to possibly see? Let me know in the comments below. And be sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you are new to it, and follow my additional social media such as my Twitter for more content and updates. This has been 𝗃𝗂𝘀𝗶𝗰, and I'm out. Peace.